the schedule came out, you looked at when the Chiefs were going to play the Raiders 6 months in advance.
To me, it's black holes and fans and screaming coaches.
It looks like the end of the world by the time the kickoff starts. There are guys dressed with makeup and spikes, and you can always count on an extra squad car, too, to be in the parking lot to clean up the mess afterward.
It's Raider Week, and that's different than any week in the season. If you win Raider Week, you're doing all right.
When I first came to Oakland, I didn't really understand the rivalry. It's something that drives so much emotion through you because you just want to shut these people up.
It's serious hatred. From the time you land, the time you get off the bus and go to your hotel room, it is a nasty thing. And those people in the Midwest in Kansas City, they're nice people, except for one time a year. That's when the Raiders come to town.
Their battles are legendary, bred of jealousy and contempt and nurtured into full-blown hatred. The Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs have waged Wildcat war for over 40 years.
Well, the rivalry started in the AFL. It's rooted as deep as it can be with that.
The AFL were these 8 franchises, mostly frustrated owners who couldn't get into the NFL. The Raiders were kind of a late add-on, and they were a doormat in the early years of the AFL when the Chiefs were in Dallas as the Dallas Texans, and the Chiefs moved to Kansas City about the time an assistant coach named Al Davis took command of the Oakland Raiders.
General manager and head coach Al Davis epitomized the Raider mystique.
He was a hustler from Brooklyn. If Al Davis came along today, he would star in The Sopranos. I mean, he was that kind of guy. Watch your back. Al Davis is around.
He has this image in Kansas City that's probably mythical, a Darth Vader-like creepy guy that wears silver and black jumpsuits. And for years there was talk that he would put bounties on Chiefs players so that his Oakland guys would go get him in a game.
Davis didn't care how you played the game as long as you win. The famous mantra, just win, baby.
I think the way he sort of inflamed the rivalry is the way he treated the people that were on the opposing sideline. There was a reason why, somewhere down the line, somewhere in history, why these people derived such a hate for the Oakland Raiders.
If Al Davis wore the black hat, Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt sported the white.
Lamar Hunt is congenial. He's classy. He is one of the originals. When you meet him, you feel like you're in the presence of some great president.
If you look at those two organizations, they're so diametrically opposed. You've got the Chiefs, who are the most collegiate of the NFL organizations.
They couldn't have facial hair. They wore ties. And the Raiders pretty much, they were the rebels. They did and dressed and looked the way they wanted.
But they became the 2 best teams out of that league. The Raiders built their team to beat the Chiefs. Al Davis had this mantra that in order to get to the championship game, you have to build your team to win the division.
It was all pretty simple. Whoever won the Western Division was going to probably win the AFL.
From 1966 to 1969, the Raiders dominated the Chiefs, winning 6 out of 8 games. But in the 1969 AFL championship game, the Chiefs had their chance for revenge.
Back to throw, LaMonica, he is sacked. Did he get creamed by Aaron Brown?
Led by MVP quarterback Daryle Lamonica, the Raiders had won both regular season games and were favored to advance to the Super Bowl.
The great thing about that game was that the Raiders came to the stadium with their bags packed to go to New Orleans. And the Chiefs found out about it before the game.
The Chiefs saw those bags packed, and they were incensed. The Raiders were already making their plans for New Orleans and hadn't played the game yet.
They fully expected to win, and they should have expected to win because they kind of owned the Chiefs. The Chiefs only beat them once between 67 and 69.
With a stifling defense led by Aaron Brown and Emmett Thomas, the Chiefs shut down the Raiders' highly touted offense.
Monica will throw one deep for Warren Wells. It's intercepted the 20 by Emmett Thomas.
Winning the game 17-7.
The Chiefs took it to them, and the Chiefs won the AFL championship.
When they were leaving, all the Raiders, they had all their suitcases. They had to take them back home after the game.
The inspired Chiefs would go on to beat the Vikings 23-7 in Super Bowl IV.
And that AFL Championship was basically the last AFL game ever played. And then the merger took effect the following year. That's really where some bad blood first began.
Davidson comes in after Dawson is down, spears him in the back.
Wasn't it beautiful?
When the AFL merged into the NFL in 1970, both the Oakland Raiders and Kansas City Chiefs were placed in the AFC West. There they would continue to battle twice a year. With more at stake than ever, hostilities intensified.
Guys that have only played for the Chiefs, they hate the Raiders. That's what they were taught, and I'm sure it was the same way with the Raiders.
It wasn't unusual for the Chiefs and Raiders to have fisticuffs all through the year.
Tempers worsened with each fiery meeting. With two hard-nosed defenses squaring off, it was only a matter of time before it turned violent.
Ben Davidson for the Raiders and Buck Buchanan for the Chiefs. No other teams in the NFL had guys like these two guys. They were so big and strong and dominant as far as jamming up the line and rushing the passer.
They would beat each other up and try everything under the sun to gain an advantage. And a lot of those advantages were late hits. Wasn't it beautiful?
The eruption finally occurred in their first meeting of the 1970 season. At 3-3, the Chiefs were desperate. They needed a win at home to give them any chance at the conference crown.
The winner of the game was going to be in first place. The loser was going to drop out. This was about midway through the season.
The Chiefs are leading the Raiders by 3, have the ball in the final minutes.
The Chiefs needed a first down to run out the clock, and Lenny Dawson ran a bootleg.
Len Dawson scrambles for a 19-yard gain, which would have sewed up the game because the Raiders are out of timeouts.
Right at the end of the play, Davidson comes in after Dawson is down, spears him in the back.
And before a flag could even be thrown, if a flag was going to be thrown, here comes Otis Taylor protecting his quarterback, and he went after Ben Davidson. They got into a fight.
Nobody was going to do that to the Chiefs quarterback, and especially Ben Davidson of the Raiders.
Otis Taylor took exception to me spearing his quarterback when he was on the ground and came and got me around the head. We ended up in a big pile, and actually I was in the safest place on the field. I was buried under a pile of Chiefs.
The officials huddled for a long time. Had no idea what to call on it. I think they were really lost.
Today, that would have been one of those post-possession fouls. Well, they flagged Davidson for the spear, Taylor for unsportsmanlike conduct, offsetting penalties. So the Chiefs, who had that 3rd and 19, had to replay the down. They didn't convert that 3rd down, so they had a punt.
And George Blanda kicked a long field goal. We tied the game.
And there was no overtime back then in the regular season. So the game finished in a tie, and the Raiders won the AFC West by that one game.
That seemed to be my defining moment in the NFL, is jumping on Lenny Dawson. And I guess it's not a great thing to be remembered for, but on the other hand, it's great to be remembered.
Coming up next, a legend switches sides.
When you're that good a player, you should get a pass.
The last place you'd expect Marcus Allen to play would be for the Chiefs.
From 1974 to 1988, the Raiders beat the Chiefs 20 of 29 times. Led by Hall of Famers Fred Biletnikoff, Jim Otto, and Willie Brown, the Raiders won Super Bowls in 1977 and 1981. Marcus Allen would lead them to a 3rd Super Bowl title in 1984. Envious of the Raiders' success, Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt went in search of a head coach. He wanted a man who would not just beat the Raiders, he wanted someone who hated them.
When Marty Schottenheimer and Carl Peterson took over the Chiefs in 1989, Marty turned Raiders Week into his own personal hell week. And he let the Chiefs players know that we don't respect the Raiders for the way they do business. They are out there on a limb. They don't put the league first. They put the Raiders first.
Marty likes to whack the Raiders. He doesn't like to beat them. He likes to whack them.
In his first 4 seasons at the helm, Schottenheimer posted a solid 6-2 record against the Raiders.
He owned the Raiders. When they played the Raiders, they won. He just beat them year after year after year. He beat them in Kansas City. He beat them in L.A. and Oakland. He had their number.
It was funny to me. It was unusual to me because you had never seen, or you hardly seen on the professional level, someone so passionate about disliking another team or another organization. But that's how Marty Schottenheimer was. And we knew that we were going to have our hands full.
That's a guy that got it. He understood that it was important to beat the Raiders, and he'd go in that locker room and say to those players, it's Raiders week. We're going to get those guys.
Marty Schottenheimer may have turned the tide, but it was a stunning Raider defection that changed the rivalry forever. Running back Marcus Allen was the pride of Raider Nation. He rushed for over 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns in his first 4 seasons and was named MVP of Super Bowl 17. By 1992, however, Al Davis had relegated his most famous player to the bench.
The prevailing theory and the most logical theory is that Marcus became the face of the Raiders in Los Angeles, and he was the most popular athlete, and Al was no longer the face of the Raiders. It was Marcus.
Al Davis doesn't covet stars. He likes great players, but he doesn't like anybody to be bigger than the team.
Apparently Al Davis decided Marcus Allen was done and stuck him on the bench and didn't want him anymore.
People just could not understand how you could freeze out a potential Hall of Fame and an ultimate Hall of Fame player like Marcus Allen.
I mean, he won the Super Bowl with one of the most memorable runs you'll ever see in Super Bowl history. Super Bowl heroes should be treated differently. When you're that good a player, you should get a pass. You should be treated with a little bit more deference than Al Davis treated Marcus Allen.
In 1987, Al Davis drafted 2 sports star Bo Jackson to step in as the Raiders' starting halfback.
This is Al Davis's kind of football player. Al Davis loves size and he loves speed. Well, Bo Jackson, I mean, my God, it was like the Terminator, coming in as a halfback. But when he came in, it was kind of the end for Marcus Allen.
The interesting thing was, this was 1993, first year of free agency in the NFL.
The Chiefs decided to take advantage of the league's new free agent landscape. They had already traded for quarterback Joe Montana to run their new West Coast offense. And after the 92 season, when Marcus Allen's contract with the Raiders expired, the Chiefs signed him to a 3-year deal.
Marty Schottenheimer hates the Raiders. And for them to sign Marcus, for Marcus to come on board and play so well, especially against the Raiders, was a thumb in the eye of Al Davis.
When Marcus Allen came to Kansas City, I thought, well, maybe he is past his prime. I watched him one game, it's like, why isn't he still in a Raider uniform?
Marcus Allen over the top, ties the record. Touchdown, Kansas City.
They used him so effectively. They took advantage of his strengths.
Allen proved his worth. In Kansas City, he would pass the 10,000-yard and 100 career TD marks, always saving his best performances for the team that had discarded him.
Marcus Allen had to look at every opportunity to play the Raiders as payback time. Just payback's a bitch. And I'm going to go in and get Al Davis and show him I had no business on the bench.
Every time they played the Raiders, I think he looked forward to it because he had a bad taste in his mouth about the way he was treated there. He wanted to prove that, hey, you let something good get away.
I think everybody involved realized from the Oakland side that was probably a mistake to let him go, or at least let him go to Kansas City. In his perfect world, it would have all worked out in Oakland with the Raiders, but it wasn't a perfect world. And if he had to go anywhere, I think this was as good a place as any for him because he could play against them a couple times a year and maybe rub their noses in it.
Coming up next, an eye for an eye.
To have Elvis put in was a real slap in the face. Slap in the face to Rich. He always had a chip on his shoulder. He always felt like he was unappreciated.
With a newly energized offense, the Chiefs dominated the Raiders through the 1990s. But in 1996, quarterbacked by Montana's replacement Steve Bono, the Chiefs finished a disappointing 9-7 and failed to make the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. Instead of turning the reins over to beloved backup Rich Gannon, the Chiefs acquired young 49ers quarterback Elvis Grbac as their long-term solution.
In 96, Bono was having some problems, and Rich was your typical backup quarterback. He was always, in the fans' eyes, the people's choice.
Rich Gannon was really overlooked here. They just didn't take him seriously as a starting quarterback. Every guy on the Chiefs loved Rich Gannon, and they wanted him to be their quarterback. And for some reason, the Chiefs organization, they kind of missed the boat on him.
And that's when the Chiefs signed Elvis Grbac to a big free agent contract in 1997, figuring Gannon was pigeonholed as the relief pitcher.
The Chiefs decide, well, we like you, Rich, but we like Elvis Grbac a lot more, so he's going to be our guy.
So Grbac in 97 gets him off to a great start. They were like 9-1 when he hurt his shoulder, and Gannon came in, held the fort. The Chiefs went 13-3. Grbac had missed 4 or 5 games during that 13-3 run, and the Chiefs made the decision to bring Grbac back for the playoff game against the Denver Broncos.
Down 14-10 to Denver with 4:04 to go, Grbac attempted to inspire a drive into the waning seconds. When his goal line pass fell incomplete, so did the Chiefs' playoff hopes. Chiefs fans were left wondering if Gannon might have fared better.
Every man in that locker room wanted Rich Gannon to be quarterback. And to have Elvis put in was a real slap in the face to Rich. He was never respected as a player. And so he always had a chip on his shoulder. He always felt like he was unappreciated.
In February of 1999, Al Davis and newly appointed head coach John Gruden courted Gannon and signed him to a 4-year, $16 million contract. Gannon made an immediate impact on his new teammates.
The one thing he impressed upon the Raiders was they hate us. They say we're going to quit, and let's show these guys we're not going to be quitters.
Rich Gannon told a great story. The first year after he played for the Raiders, Marty Schottenheimer used to paint the picture of what the Raiders were like. For so many years, and you just had it in your head, you were brainwashed that this place was evil and it was insane and no one in the right mind would ever want to play here. And you come here and it's just like any other place.
He comes to the Raiders and he's finally home.
When John Gruden brought Rich Gannon to the Oakland Raiders, he made him the starter from day one. You're not backing up anybody. You're here to be the starter. And I think Rich took that as a personal challenge for him to go out there and play his absolute best football.
Gannon got immediate revenge in January of 2000. The Raiders visited Kansas City in the final game of the regular season. The Chiefs sat at 9-6. A win meant a playoff berth. A loss by the Chiefs, and their season was over.
There's so many ramifications that are riding on this game, not only for us in the building momentum and gaining confidence, but for this Kansas City team. They've got to win to get in the playoffs. Now the heated rivalry is on. Everyone assumes that they're going to win.
The Chiefs jumped out to a huge lead, and we were thought, wow, the Chiefs are going to be in the playoffs.
It was 17-0. The Raiders blocked a punt to make it 17-7. And you know how sometimes those things can change the course of a game.
I think once we tied it up is when they began to realize, oh, it's not going to be an easy game. And by that time, it was too late.
After mounting a monumental comeback, Chiefs kicker Pete Stoyanovich missed a game-winning 44-yard field goal at the end of regulation. The game now into overtime.
We had sucked all the momentum out of the stadium. They weren't making as much noise as we were. I remember Rich coming in the huddle one time and saying, you know what, we got them. We got them pinned up against the wall. Now let's break their backs. Let's shut this crowd up and go home victorious. And that's what happened.
It was a big win for the Raiders. They kind of stuck it to the Chiefs, and they kept the Chiefs out of the playoffs that year.
It was bad enough to lose that game no matter who they were playing, and then to lose it to a team that they always beat, to a hated rival. It was just another twist of the knife. This rivalry, particularly in recent years, has been filled with games like that.
In 2002, Gannon led the Raiders back to the Super Bowl. They lost to Tampa Bay, but Gannon was named league MVP.
Rich Gannon won the MVP award by dominating Kansas City the year he won that award.
There were times that Rich took games in his own hands and won games for our football team. And that's what you expect from your quarterback. That's what you ask for your quarterback. Rich finishing his career in Oakland made him a legend.
With every new fall in the NFL comes new hope, new faces, new contenders, and new struggles to face on the road to the Super Bowl. But one thing will always remain a constant. 2 times a year, 40 years of pent-up hostility and jealousy and contempt will pour out onto the field for 60 minutes of KC Oakland mayhem.
It's always been heated, and it's always 2 games that you look forward to every single season.
No matter what the records are, no matter how big the game is, no matter who's in first place, there's just always something that satisfies, like beating the Raiders. Maybe to people on the outside who aren't paying a lot of attention, they might say, well, you know what, this rivalry isn't what it used to be. But to those players on the field, I guarantee it is.
Win the division today with a little help, and we will start off with a pass coming near side, and there is Sherman, the fullback, with a big play, and he lowers the shoulder. Smith on the fake. There's Macklin. Touchdown, Kansas City. 3rd down and 2. Carr, time. Nothing to the right, nothing to the left. Going to go back left now. Still looking downfield. He's got a man. Oh, it's intercepted. He had Cooper underthrown a little bit, and it's Ron Parker, the tailback. Throw it again. Outside, and that is going to be intercepted, and it's going to be a touchdown. David Emerson. This team run it inside, nowhere to go. Good play. Khalil Mack was there, and just a couple push-ups to celebrate. Why not?
I like that celebration, but tough to score on.
Meanwhile, the Chiefs. Wearing the game at tailback, but they'll throw it. Smith going end zone. What a catch! Touchdown! It's Harris. And needing them quickly. Carr, pressure. Hit as he throws. Going deep. Crabtree. Got it! Touchdown! 3rd down. Smith gonna run it. Yeah, he is not gonna get it. 4-man rush. Carr just gonna dump it off at this point. Rivera, the tight end's got a long way to go. He's got to get out of bounds, and he doesn't. He does not get out of bounds.
Smart football by Sean Smith and Derek Johnson, just holding him up and not letting him get out of bounds.
They can't spike it. It's 4th down. They've got to snap it, and they won't get it off. The Chiefs have won the game. They hold on.
What's up? This is Murray looking for the end zone. Did he get there? Ruled down by contact. You saw Murray stretching for the goal line. The question is, did his knee hit before he reached it? So Jack Del Rio's challenge works out for the Oakland Raiders. Smith pulls it down, right up the middle for the touchdown. Smith, that's Kelsey, and Kelsey inside the 30, inside the 25-yard line, lost the football. This is Woodson. Woodson back down the sideline to about the 35. On 2nd and 10, Carr throwing for the end zone at the goal line. Touchdown, Michael Crabtree.
Man-to-man coverage on the outside, so
going to give it to Ware, and Ware squeezes through and into the end zone for the touchdown. We'll get back to it. Meanwhile, here's the pass. Carr, this side, touchdown, Lee Smith. What's up? Carr pulls it down again, and now looking for room to run. Tried to throw it, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Josh Maga. Maga down the middle of the field. Can he get there? Inside the 5 and down at the 1-yard line. No one in the backfield. Quick pass. Touchdown, Jeremy Macklin.
Because I think they believed that it was going to be an Alex Smith quarterback keeper or a quarterback sneak, so they only moved enough guys out for the one-on-one, and the Chiefs able to get the quick completion, and Macklin
fell out of my chair, guys. Derek Carr throwing over the middle, and he's intercepted. Picked off by Peters. Peters back up the sideline. 40, 30, 20. Out of bounds at about the 15-yard line. 3 red zone trips, 3 touchdowns for the Chiefs. The pass to the near side, Macklin. Macklin to the end zone, touchdown. It has to make a decision. Carr Throwing over the middle, incomplete, and is it intercepted? Picked off at midfield by Ty Von Blanche to the end zone. Yes, touchdown. Tip, picked off, looks clean.
All of that looked clean.
And back for the touchdown. Let's see. On the sideline.
Looks like he made it.
Yeah, it looks like he did.